So on this video, I'm going to break this up in two parts. The first part of the video, I'm going to populate all the data except the image. The second video is going to be just the image. The reason for that is everything in this video I have already shown you before. It's just going to be simply wiring up this fragment so that when I click on a list, that it loads, that pulls this up, and then it goes into the controller and grabs the data and populates it. I will do everything except the beer picture. You've already seen all of it before. If you're still comfortable with that and don't need to see me do it again or get another example or hear another explanation, you can just skip this video. Also, to speed this video up, since I've already done all of it once, I'm going to do some copy and pasting and just explain the code. I thought that would be a better use of your time. So with that, let's get started. So I'm going to go to the fragment, detail fragment. And right now, this is the one, if you remember early in the video, I just renamed. This was fragment 2 or second fragment or whatever they called it. I just renamed it. What I need now is the ability to pass data to the fragment. And if you remember in the earlier project where I add a new fragment, it has a whole bunch of boilerplate code that we refactored to do what we needed. I don't have any of that this time, so I'm going to have to do it all myself. But again, rather than you watch me type it, I'm going to copy and paste. So the first thing is I'm going to need to create the companion object that lets me create a new instance of this and pass some data to it. So first let's define our key. If you remember, the data we passed it's going to be name value pairs. So I need some kind of a way of identifying what's the value I'm sending in. So in this case, the only thing we're going to pass in is the entry index, meaning this is in the list of beers we have back, which index do we want from the controller. So if you click item number 3, we pass in number 3, and now this will know to pull that up. So again, define that here. I need a place to save it. So let's create a property. All right, so this is where we'll save the entry index. So we don't have an onCreate, so I need to create one. So this is the function that runs when the application first gets created. And so what happens here is we check to see, did you get an argument passed in? And if so, let's see if we can go grab it, right? Is there an argument with this name, entry index? If so, assign it to our property entry index. Okay, so on create view, there's a lot to add here. We'll do that here in just a little bit. Next thing though I need to do is the companion object. So let me go copy and paste that. And again, I find this whole thing confusing. So I like to stick in those little comments. Okay. So the companion object, remember, we create a new function called new instance. It's a companion object, so this in essence is static. And in fact, you have to tag it as JVM static. Then we're going to create, and I'm actually copying this out of a different sample app I did that I'm not using in this course actually, for a recipe list. So it's not the detail fragment that we want to create, it is the recipe detail, just detail fragment. So create detail fragment. So what happens is you call a new instance, you pass in the entry, then the fragment will create a new bundle. It will add in the bundle the index that you have here. Then when it creates the detail fragment, it passes this bundle in. The bundle then gets picked up right here as an argument. It pulls that value out of it and assigns it to entry index. So again, all review. So on create, this is when I don't have enough to copy and paste. So I'm going to have to write this out, but that's okay. And just to make this a little easier, I'm just going to stick all this on one line. It's just one method anyway, signature, just to get it out of our way. Okay, so we're going to inflate the fragment just like normal. And now we need to go get the data. So first let's make sure we have, and in this program we should always have an index, but just in case we don't. So if entry index is not equal to null, then we want to go grab that beer and do something with it. So let's say val beer is equal to, remember beer controller is a singleton. get beer at position. Yeah, I can't remember what I called it. And the position is entry index. Okay. So now we have that. And at this point, just because of the nature of things, even though we're checking for null, the compiler is still not sure. So this one we do have to explicitly. But we just checked. So this is safe to do. Not something we like to do all the time, but sometimes you need to. Now that we have that, we just start finding our things. It's a text view. And you know what? I'm going to do, well, let's just do one and copy and paste them. So r.id.textView detail, let me start with name, is equal to beer. And remember, beer is, it's going to return an optional. Now, I fully expect it to return something, but it could return null, so we need to make it a safe operator. So beer.name.or empty, just in case this didn't have a beer. Getting an error. Oh, okay. So getting an error, remember that we've talked about this before. On create view, the default creates a view and then returns it immediately. Since we need to do things with a view, I need to do val view is equal to that, and then down here, when I'm done with it, into the function, return the view. Okay, so do I have a typo somewhere? Looks like it should be all right. Value expected. View is not an optional. Find view by ID. It's a text view. Right, text view. Oh, huh. Whoops. Dot text. We got to set the. We're actually setting the property. So what are we doing? We're just going out. We're finding the detail name. We're setting the text property to be beer. Okay. So I can just copy this, and let's paste a few of those in here. So let's do text view detail tagline. And I'm trying to go through this fairly quickly since you've seen all this before. And description. I think I know there's a couple more here. There we go. Okay, so that's good. The food pairings, remember that's an array of strings. A couple different ways that we could choose to display this, and if this was a more, you were building this as a professional application you're going to release, you might want to use like a recycler view. So you'd have a small recycler view inside this screen, and the recycler view would then pass in the array of food pairings, and you'd add it as a scrollable list. Because maybe you get 0 food pairings, maybe you get 100 food pairings or something in between. So you'd want a scrollable list. But you've seen, I don't need to show you how to do recycler views again. You've seen a lot of those. So instead I'm going to do kind of a, not quite as nice of a method, but one that's probably still worth seeing. I'm just going to build a string and slap them all into the one single text view with a bunch of carriage returns, line feeds, so that they all are on separate lines. I'll show you what I mean. So first we want to check and see, do we actually have food pairing? Remember, it could be null. So if it's not null, meaning we do have some values, then let's go grab it. And it's called pairings. So what we got to do here is a little weird. The syntax is a little bit weird. So what I want to do, you could loop through these and build your own string. But there is a function on arrays built in called join to string. And join to string, it doesn't show up here as a default, but there's actually an optional parameter called separator. So what join to string does is it takes an array of strings and it just concatenates them all together, and it puts, you can tell it what separator you want between them. If you don't say what separator, it will do comma separated. But in this case, I actually want to put a separator myself. I want it to be a line feed. So what I do here is let's just add the parameter, and the parameter is called separator. I can make sure I spell it right. Separator. There we go. Separator equals char sequence, and I want it to be equal to /n, which is line feed. And you'll see this escape code for line feed is in almost every single language I've ever worked in. This is how you say line feed. Okay, now with that, which is a reference to each one of the strings, and I want each one of the strings to be $it. So what this will do now is it'll take all the food pairings, it's going to concatenate them all together, separated by a line feed. Now that I have that, I can come up here and let's go and copy. I can go find the food pairing. And the text property is equal to pairings. So this all should work. The part we haven't done yet is actually to be able to click on a list item and display it. And I can't remember if I even did that, if I wrote that code yet. So let's go figure it out. And if not, we'll add it in, and then we'll be good to go. I think that's everything. So let's go to the list fragment and see, did I delegate? Yeah, I did. Okay, good. I already wrote that code. So now we just need to go ahead and write the code to display the screen here, right? So let's do val and try to think through how I want to do this. Okay, so we're doing a navigation. Okay, so I do need to pass this in as a bundle. Sorry, I was just trying to think through if I was using that status function. I don't want to confuse you, but I actually didn't need that companion object because we're going to use the nav controller. So, and because I'm using the nav controller, I'm going to use, we'll have to pass this in as a bundle. So we'll create a new bundle, and then arguments dot, we're going to put an int, and the key is, remember we defined it already, arg entry index, and the value is position. So it's what was clicked, what was the index of what was clicked. And now I can do find controller dot navigate r.id dot, what did I call it? Action listed detail. And then we pass to it the bundle. And that should display it. So let's run it and see if I got everything right. The moment of truth. Hey, okay, good. And I'm honestly saying, let's see, because I have no idea. That was an awful lot of code between running the application. But it's working. So we get, here's the name, a real bitter experience. Here's the information. I can go back. We can choose a different one. Everything appears to be working just fine. So the next video, we'll load the image.